Broadcasting live in geosynchronous orbit with eccentricity and non-specific inclination, The Situation Room, with your hosts Rocci, John, and Scotty.
Let's go. Torture.
EITS.
Well, first of all, sorry.
Yes.
I did ask Mr. Rocky Stuckey what an actual ETI was, or an IET, or whatever it is.
EIT. It's an EIT.
What is that?
Are you asking me or are you asking Rocky?
No, I'm asking you.
Enhanced Interrogation Technique.
Yeah, John, I told you that.
From they're EITs from the CIA, ASAP.
Are they VIPs?
Most of them are.
Oh, okay. As long as we clarified that. So it's an enhanced interrogation technique.
Yes. And an enhanced interrogation technique is what is at question over here in the United States. Now, there's been lots of controversy over this since the end of the middle of the Bush administration, somewhere in there. And so you could say for like the last 10 to 12 years, it's been an issue, and it's been a rising issue. And it's been an issue that's been relaunched with Obama taking the throne.
So it's basically an issue with liberals, really.
Isn't any issue that is a major issue in the United States one that is generally a non-bipartisan issue? It is an issue that straddles two sides of the fence, or is coming from either side of the fence, lobbying at the other side of the fence. In this particular situation, enhanced interrogation techniques is in big question now because, as we mentioned, and most people who are listening to us have some idea of what's been going on out there in the press, and that is Dianne Feinstein, senator. She has been for a long time working at a release of the documentation that details the CIA's EITs as used on prisoners at Guantanamo Bay and used on prisoners that are Muslims or Islamic, because it has to do with what went on at 9/11, and that's where it all stems back to 9/11. And it all stems back to the people that were taken into custody and the techniques we used to try to extract information from them. A big debate has risen in the United States. That's several-pronged, I think. Number one, you've got a senator that is pushing to release this private information to the rest of the world, which has happened, revealing the kind of techniques that the CIA incorporated in trying to extract information. It generally resolves around 39 people that we, being the United States, either firsthand, secondhand, thirdhand, had our own hands laid upon people that were taken into custody in order to extract information, or it was passed on to a second party in another country, Pakistan, or it was operatives of ours in other countries or operatives of theirs in other countries. So it extends to an even broader reach once you get outside of the borders of the United States and Guantanamo. So the big question that's been out there is over the kind of techniques that have been detailed that the CIA used to extract information. Now, if anybody's not catching on yet what we're talking about out there that's listening, extracting information, that means trying to get somebody to spill the beans about something, to talk about something, to release information about something. Now, John, let's say you were trying to extract information from me. You arrested me because there was some terrible thing I knew about, and you needed to get the information from me. You would ask me, and you could probably use I have a very low threshold for anything. You could probably ask me, and I'd start crying because I'd feel guilty, and I'd spill the beans. But somebody like Rocky, you might have to use a hot poker. You might.
You got to be kidding. The man gets emotional over trying to figure out what time of day it is.
Well, remember, that's all surface. The guy's Italian. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, it's Italian, exactly. They cry at anything. All you got to do is take a bottle of wine and throw it on the floor and see him,
He just look at you. You're dead. You're dead.
I'll take a couple of his mother's meatballs and just squash them in my hands.
John, I'm just going to have to say that I like you so much better when you just first wake up when you're really tired.
Yeah, he's been thinking too much today already.
Oh, Scotty, you should have heard the conversation before the show started. I just asked him a simple question. I'm like, John, I just got a question. I'm like, so if I'm flying to Egypt, and Egypt is 8 hours ahead, is that technically time travel? And they turned into a 20-minute answer, and you want to talk about becoming emotional is just listening to his answer. So gear yourself, Scotty, because he is in a mood.
Man, it's a good thing I wasn't here until 3:03.
It was not a 20-minute answer. You do exaggerate, Rocky, don't you? I'm going to have words with your mother, I think.
So the point I was making was you can use...
Oh, you were actually making a point. I'm sorry.
You can use techniques to try to extract information. Some people are going to sing like birds just because they're guilty as hell. Other people don't want to have it go any further. And then other people, you may have to incorporate certain measures to try to get them to talk. Now, my understanding...
That's not exactly the case.
What's not exactly what case?
Well, that's not exactly the case when it comes to enhanced interrogation techniques.
Well, I was
only joking when I asked you what it meant.
I know.
The whole purpose of torture is actually to, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, if a scenario, take a scenario that you have a prisoner and you are aware or you have a hunch that prisoner is withholding information that could lead to further intelligence on said group, you will proceed with the torture prior to trying to even ask him a question with regards to the information.
Now, what's the purpose of proceeding with any kind of a torture or an EIT, which has been distinguished? They distinguish each other. They say an EIT is not torture. It's a low level form, but it's not the kind of torture. It's like saying, this is the fire that won't burn you third degree. This is only first degree fire.
An EIT is more mentally rather than physical. There shouldn't, I say shouldn't in parentheses, there shouldn't be any pain involved with EIT. But when it comes to actual torture, of course, there is pain involved and there is a pain threshold. But one will proceed with torture prior to actually asking the question that you are.
Well, now wait. Now let me ask you, and I don't mean to be flippant with this at all. I'm serious. Could torture then, by definition, inflicting pain? If I looked at somebody and they weren't answering me and I slapped him in the face and say, you better try that answer again, is that torture? Could somebody taking me and pushing me up against a wall and twisting my arm behind my back and saying what's the information I need to know?
That's torture.
That's torture. So, like when I was bullied on the playground, or I bullied somebody on the playground, I'm not going to say I actually did that when I was a kid. If you're out on the playground and somebody sat on my chest and they start poking your chest with their fingertip,
I hate that.
and they start saying, say uncle, say uncle, say uncle, is that torture?
Yes. I mean, I used to use the knuckle of my index finger, and you used to bury that in the base of their back.
So now,
while using the pincer movement between the thumb and the forefinger of your other hand, just behind the ear and twisting it in an anti-clockwise direction, you'll get basically anybody to sing like a canary for you.
Then if that is technically the definition of torture, inflicting pain to get information, if all it might be is what we used to call titty twisters to get you to say uncle, is that punishable by law? Or is what is punishable by law only when it is done in a corporate sense or done in an official sense?
If it's a titty twist, it's more sexual then, isn't it?
You would take it there, wouldn't you?
I'm sorry, but that is a form of torture.
Let's see. I gotta take some notes here on John. Let's see. Titty. Let's see. Check number 14. Titty twister is sexual. Got it. Okay. All right. You got 14 X's on your name. Wow. What's that all about? So, okay, where it is prosecutable as a war crime, let's move up into that.
Please.
Very advanced.
We are not even going to go there. Do not start me on war crimes on torture victims.
All right. Should Adolf Eichmann have been prosecuted by the state of Israel for his war crimes in World War II?
Yes.
Okay. He was.
He actually, I mean, that was not a good.
But did Adolf Eichmann ever lay a finger on anybody?
No, but the responsibility lays on him. So, I mean, you can't use that as an argument.
Okay, let's take it down a notch then. We already know that was legal. And, of course, it was the state of Israel, which had never had any crimes committed against it because it wasn't even formed until 1948-49. So it was a state that did not exist at the time of the crime were actually able to go out and find him, hunt him down, arrest him, bring him to trial, and execute him.
I mean, one of the questions you may raise, if you wish to, I shouldn't give you ammunition, but you could use the war in the former Yugoslav during the 90s, where there were mass killings, tortures, and so forth, where women and children were burned alive in churches or in mosques and so forth. There were plenty of heinous crimes that were committed during the former Yugoslavian war. Did anybody actually get committed to a prison sentence for that?
No, I do not think so. Wasn't there somebody though that was, man, I've got his face in my head and I can't think of his name. He had the white hair, the kind of puffy white hair. He was in the Yugoslav. I know, Tito goes way back. I'm not talking about Tito. I'm thinking since Tito. And
yeah, I know.
We're on a theme here, titty twisters and Tito. But I just thought I'd make that connection there. They're both spelled almost the same way.
There is no connection there between Tito.
But there is no connection. Okay, you're going to get Milosevic, I think, was the guy. Milosevic. Vich. I've heard it both ways. I've heard Milosevic.
We have heard that as well. That you go back.
Slobodan, I think was his first name. Slobodan. Somebody looked that up. Yugoslav president who was tried.
You see, this is a very delicate issue. There's a very, very fine line here between having torture, having torture labeled as a war crime in the time or during the time of war. What is deemed beyond acceptable on the battlefield?
Now, that is the big question. If you're on a battlefield, what is deemed non-acceptable? What is deemed moral or immoral? If you are in a battle...
Morality should not even dare come into it.
Well, let's bring it in, because that's an argument that some people use.
Why?
It's an argument. Let's address the argument that gets used.
Okay.
Let's talk about the argument that's used. First of all, you're going to have people that say going to war is immoral all by itself. Now, perhaps going to war for the purpose of being an aggressor for no prompted reason, there might be some morality issues behind that. Or it might just be that nation saying, this is what we're going to do. Look at, not to hop all over the place without getting to the point, but look at Putin. What is he doing? He deems what he is doing as a moral issue. It's expanding his country's territory, the things that he's trying to accomplish. Let's put it that way. And look where they are as of yesterday.
He's actually only reclaiming land, to be fair.
Right, he's reclaiming land. But then again, that same argument would then go to Israel.
And that same argument could be on the doorsteps of America with its intrusions in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and so forth.
That was one of the big arguments that was put forward. The whole issue of Obama signing an executive order to grant amnesty to all immigrants, illegal immigrants. The people who were against that, the opposite side will say, well, the Native Americans would say you're illegal immigrants too. And my response to that was, well, maybe 150 years ago they could have said that. Now they can't. They can't say that to me at all because I wasn't there, and neither were they. We're both products of history right now. We're not the ones making that particular piece of history. And we've had that discussion here before as well. So let's reel it back to where we were when you were bringing up the example of being on the battlefield and having to make decisions. When you are in a battlefield situation and you have a decision, do I put a bullet in that guy's chest or head or do I not? That's an easy place to have to make that decision. And by easy, I mean, I'm not talking about individuals' moralities or individuals' sensibilities or their ability to pull a trigger or not. I'm talking about when you're in a battlefield situation, making a decision to take life is one that is almost a given. You're going to have to do that if you're in a close proximity to the enemy. And sometimes it's either, and here's the key phrase, even though it's an old cliche, kill or get killed in a battle situation. So
we're talking about torture on the battlefield.
Let's move to the torture on the battlefield.
Let's say you've captured a person or part of your enemy, and you need to retrieve information or intelligence from him, and you're in a battlefield situation. You're not in a nice little warehouse tucked away somewhere on some deserted little island or in some godforsaken country that has given you sovereignty just to have that place of torture.
Let me give you a couple of examples, and you tell me as I name each example, moral or immoral. All right?
Okay.
Or proper or improper in the scenario that you're setting. Okay. You're interrogating somebody, John, and he's not giving you the information. You need information that could save your army and win the war. All right? Pistol whipping. Moral
Proper.
or immoral? Proper.
Proper.
Electrodes to the testicles.
Proper.
Let's see, jumper cables hooked up to a car battery to somebody's nipples. There, I've gotten real close to the titty twister argument. Proper. Slapping in harsh language.
Proper.
Tell me or I'll get really mad at you.
Proper.
Tell me, and if you don't tell me, I guess I'll just let you go.
No.
Improper. That would be improper. All right, so now we've established some basic facts here. Is that at least in a battle situation where you are fighting with somebody, where you are in battle representing your nation, and so on, whatever, we all know what war is. We don't have to define that. You're in a war, you're in a battle situation, that if you need to extract information from somebody from the other side, is it proper to put the screws to him, so to speak?
It is indeed. The best thing to do is have a first aid kit handy or a medic with at least 5 syringes of penicillin, and basically whip him within 1 inch of his life, give him a nice shot of penicillin, let him rest for 2 hours, and then begin the process again.
Now, what about in the case of, now I'm moving this up into a different scenario, granted, but something that Human Rights Watch, Ken Roth, executive from Human Rights Watch, he said that a proper way to interrogate without imposing torture is to win them over, to win a rapport, to start a report.
Oh, please! You are just saying this to wind me up, aren't you? Seriously. I tell you what, I'd love to take one of these NIMBY, liberal, I can't say what I want to say because it would be rude and improper to say so on live radio. And I will not go down that road. I will not remove my cravat like I did with that other numbskull that we spoke to the other day. But I would basically take one of these little NIMBY liberals and take them into such a scenario and let them win the hearts and minds of an ISIS insurgent. And let him see if he can win the mind. Let him see if he can win his heart. Let him talk to him. He could maybe use a little feather and tickle him under his toes until he speaks or laughs. Please.
What would you say to somebody who says, in a situation where you maybe have to put the screws to somebody to get vital information that will save lives, do you think it's proper that we need to try to understand his perspective? Where is he coming from? Why is he doing what he's doing? When I'm fighting against him and he's fighting against me, or we've done actually, you could say, terror on each other by way of war, is it my responsibility when we are in that tight situation to try to look that guy in the eye and, if not at least establish a rapport, at least try to understand what his point of view is? What does he bring to the table? Why is he doing what he is doing?
Well, here.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down with him and have a cup of tea and some cucumber sandwiches and discuss life and discuss his problems. I'm sure he has problems. No, I don't care. This man, if he's the enemy, he's holding or withholding information. I don't care if he has the information or not. I will torture him until he speaks.
All right. Then that brings up the moral question.
It's not immoral because you're then placing a religious or cultural background on it. As I said previously, and I've said this to you many times before, you have got to remain neutral, and especially in that kind of scenario, you have to remove any moral conditioning that you have undergone as a child and as a young adult. You have to be able to enter that situation with a clear set of rules and a set of parameters, results that you require, and you will go through a process until you have received the information you require from that person.
What do you do with
the story?
What do you do with the train of thought, though, that says, if you threaten somebody, if you threaten them with further pain, further torment, they are going to sing like a bird, but they'll tell you anything you want to hear, and it may not even be accurate.
That is true. They will tell you anything you want to hear up until the point where the pain barrier has been breached or the mental barrier has been breached. That is why we have EIT. You start with sleep deprivation, sound deprivation, everything else first of all. You break all of those 5 senses down to a little nub. Once you've reduced it to a shivering wreck of a mental capacity of a chimpanzee, that's when you start to probe it.
But is the information then gleaned, do you think, accurate?
Probably not, but there will be a certain amount of it that will be accurate. It will always be based upon fact.
All right.
Always. The CIA, the FBI, the SAS, any military secret service or institution will always go publicly out and say that information gleaned from torture is inaccurate because people will say whatever they want to say to save their lives. That is true in many instances, but in the majority of instances, the information that is gleaned is always based upon fact, and it is then down to the chain of command and down to the actual intelligence service to actually disseminate that information and glean from it the snippets of truth that are required to then proceed with the next action.
I was just going to say, the first thing I think of if somebody gave me false information, the first thing I'll think of is there would be a consequence to that false information.
Right.
Something more. And it sounds cruel to say it, but, we're talking there could be a potential of thousands of lives on the line, and we have these people sitting around saying we need to have Rupert floats with these people to get their trust and their understanding, and it just don't make sense to my head because what is happening behind the scenes and how many more people are dying while we're trying to accumulate relationships.
Exactly.
I also tend to think that the more pain that is administered in a situation like that, the more likely somebody is to create fabrications. They aren't thinking fabrication, they're thinking of blurting out the information so they can relieve whatever pain is being inflicted on them. Sean over in the chat room is saying that the CIA has said that almost 100% of the information gleaned at the hand of the EITs has been inaccurate. Now, I thought I'd heard the opposite. I heard that they gleaned an awful lot of accurate information when they imposed enhanced interrogation techniques. They got a lot of reliable information. But wouldn't it seem to you that if you are under a great amount of duress or a great amount of pain and you want that to stop, are you thinking of how to fabricate a story? Because then you have to use imagination, you have to use fabrication, you have to create. You have to be creative to create a lie. Are you thinking of creative acts? Can you be creative when you are under pain?
Yes.
I know that when I am least creative in the work where I have to be creative, I can't write creative fiction when I'm sick, pooping or throwing up. I can't write creative fiction. If somebody is pulling out my fingernail while I'm trying to write creative fiction, my mind ain't going anywhere creative.
Yes, but I mean, you use that pain to actually suppress the information that your aggressor or your torturer is requiring from you. You actually go into the pain. You use the pain as the barrier. So you
could this, if we used a very, very, very mild form of as an example here, look at parenting. They say you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. If I threaten to spank my child, I might get a good reaction from him, the reaction I desire, I mean. But if I promise, hey, if you do this, you get a new toy, what is going to prompt my child to act better? Or are they both equally? So, in other words, the question being, if you offer incentives, it's been presented here that over in the chat room that the police will offer incentive or reward or lower the charges or drop the charges or offer immunity or whatever if they give the information, as opposed to beating them with a nightstick or with a.
No, but you're talking about different. You're talking about different scenarios. Torture is always torture is only usually used on applicants that basically will never see the light of day.
Right.
That's usually the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is that the applicant who's having the torture inflicted upon them, they know, there is no end. It's basically, this is going to happen. You are going to talk, and then we're either going to lock you away and throw away the key, or we're just going to put a bullet in your head. Either scenario is going to take place. In the meantime, we will continue with this pain until you talk. You can either make it quick or you can make it slow. That's the choice you have.
All right. Well, on that lovely, lovely note, I think it's time that we go out to break before we go any deeper into this. I just want to let you know that prior to going out to break, I want to give you one little bit of information, is that it appears that President Obama has come out and backed the CIA director.
He's come out of the closet.
He's come out of the closet. He has come out.
Did he wear a gimp suit?
He is backing John Brennan, the Central Intelligence Agency director.
Good. So he should.
He should.
Yes, he should. 100%.
And so when we come back, I want to talk about war crimes. Do you think our past president and any of the CIA operatives are culpable to be arrested or prosecuted under war crimes? And folks, this is Scotty Roberts. I got John Ward and Rocci Stucci. That's him. I didn't hear anything from Rocci.
Here.
Rocci, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. I am ready
There's
to rock and
Rocci.
roll.
Yeah. Where's here, Rocky?
And now that we've established that we're all here, we're now leaving here to go out to break. So you hang on. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Hanging.
By your elbows.